Welcome back to another video from the Pokerist, this time with a Pokemon Showdown battle. Unfortunately, this is not live commentary because at the time that I had this battle requested, I did not have a microphone. I was, however, able to record the battle with a on-screen capture. This battle was requested by a YouTube subscriber named King Articus, as you guys can see, and it's a UU tier battle. So I'm going to lead with my Infernape, and the reason why I decided to open up with Infernape is because I'm really afraid of Forretress. Forretress is one of those tanky Pokemons that you really can't take it out in one hit, especially because it has Sturdy, and it likes to set up all over you, and I do not want to have Spikes and Stealth Rocks as hazard entries, so I'm just going to go for a U-turn on this Vaporeon and going to go into my Ampharos because it shouldn't do too much damage. However, he does get a crit, and that does about 40% to my Ampharos, which kind of sucks because it's a very tanky mon, but it's not a very big deal. I went for the Bolt Switch, but he did protect, so seeing that, I decided to go for the Thunderbolt this time because no matter what he switches into, he's gonna take a lot of damage. Even if he would have switched into that Haxorus, it was not going to appreciate a Thunderbolt from an Ampharos, especially Mega Evolve. But he does go into Forretress, the Pokemon that I thought he was going to open up with, and that does a lot of damage. Ampharos has a very high special attack, like I mentioned, and I'm not even running any special attack investment. I will go more into detail later on in the battle exactly on what EV spread I'm running on this Ampharos. Here I have no reason not to go for a Volt Switch because if he decides to conserve this, I'll get Switch Initiative. And if he does decide to leave in his Forretress, he's gonna go down to this Volt Switch. He will not outspeed me. Forretress usually never runs speed. He does leave it in, and I am gonna take that down. So here I'm free to switch into whatever I want, but I have to pick carefully because my opponent, like I mentioned, is going to have Switch Initiative. So I'm gonna decide to go into my Crobat because I am running U-turn, and unless he decides to go for his own Crobat, I don't think there's going to be anything on his team that's going to outspeed me. I know that his Crobat is going to be faster just because I don't run a lot of speed investment on Crobat, just enough to outspeed those 110 base Pokemon, and I kind of run him bulky to defog, roost, and do a little bit of chip damage with U-turn and kind of hit hard with Brave Bird since it is its stab. I don't know what he's gonna go into, but if he does decide to go into his Crobat, well, it's not going to matter because, like I said, I am running a defensive build with this Crobat, and he's kind of mourning that his Forretress didn't really do much. But it happens. I mean, he switched it in on a Thunderbolt, so it took a hard hit. It's unfortunate for him, but it's very good for me because I have the freedom to switch now. A lot more than I would have had if he had Spikes and Stealth Rocks. Here he switches out to his Haxorus, and I don't want to U-turn or hard switch because I know he's going to go for a Dragon Dance. That's what almost everybody does with Haxorus. So I decided to just go for a Brave Bird, and here I'm kind of in a bind. I don't want to lose my Crobat, but I don't want to switch into anything else because that Haxorus, it's at a 1+ stage and it's going to hit very, very hard. I could have switched into Mamoswine and gone for an Ice Shard, but I'm not running Focus Sash, so it's gonna take me in one hit. So I decide that staying in with Crobat is the best option, even if I have to fodder it, because I don't want to lose anything else. And Crobat doesn't really do much for this against this team, since nothing in its team is really weak to flying. But it does have that nice U-turn initiative and that nice Brave Bird stab. So I decided to just stay in and go for another Brave Bird. Here my opponent mispredicts, and I don't question his play, because from anybody's perspective, it could have been very obvious that, or it could seem obvious that he was going to go for an Outrage. So maybe he thought, I have my Crobat at full health, there's no way I'm going to want to lose it. But like I said, I did opt it to fodder it, so that misprediction cost him greatly. It was one of those risk reward plays, but in this case it ended up being a huge risk that did not pay off. And he goes into his Absol. He goes for a Sucker Punch, and here you guys see that I'm able to take that fairly well, because I'm running that HP investment. So I don't take a lot of damage, just a little bit over 60%, 62. But I cannot stay here and take another hit, and besides I went for a U-turn. My best play is to go into Infernape, and I have options here. He's gonna fear that Mach Punch, even though he outspeeds me at this point. The fact that I switched in Infernape makes it very obvious that I have Mach Punch. But I predict him to switch out, and that's why I go for a U-turn back into my Ampharos, because Vaporeon can't really do much against Ampharos. I mean, it can Ice Beam, but because I'm running a very defensive and especially defensive Ampharos with HP investment, I can take hits very well. I don't think I even have any investment on the special attack, except for the fact that I'm running a Modest Nature, and already it's at 200, above 200 base stat just with the Modest Nature. Ampharos really hits like a truck on the special side. He goes for a Protect to get a little bit of lefties for coverage, and I just go for a Thunderbolt. I know I'm not going to take him out in one hit. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. But unfortunately for him, I do get the Para Hacks. And it does matter because, as you guys just saw, Vaporeon was outspeeding me. So that meant he could have gone for an Ice Beam and done more damage against me, which would have put me in a more complicated situation. But now I'm just free to just go for another Thunderbolt. There's no reason not to. It's going to take Vaporeon, and he doesn't have anything that can resist the Thunderbolt. So I'm just going to click Thunderbolt. And my opponent decides to actually sack off the Vaporeon. So it's kind of looking like I have the momentum here. And I mean, I can't say that it's a victory for sure, because I've lost to a Shuckle versus 6 of my Mons. Of course, he's not running any Mon that's that defensive, but I mean, anything could just happen. So I'm not tossing the defeat for him or claiming victory yet. As you guys can see, that Sucker Punch does only 38%, and that base stat attack from Absol is 150. It's nothing to sleep on. If I had not been running HP or defense investment, that would have knocked me down from this range. But that investment is paying a lot of dividends here, because I am able to survive its Sucker Punch, and I'm also able to take down the Absol, which was kind of a huge threat since it's a speedy Mon and it hits really hard. Here I just switched to my Crobat to get a little bit of more Black Sludge recovery, and he is just going to switch into his Crobat. There's no reason not to. It outspeeds, and you guys are going to see why I say that it outspeeds, not only because of my investment. Even if I had been running Max Jolly or Timid with full speed investment, he would have outspent me, and you guys will see why. So I'm not surprised that my Crobat goes down here, and I'm free to go into my Haxorus, because even if he goes for a Brave Bird or a Toxic, I'm just going to go for a Dragon Dance. I'm going to have the upper hand. There was the risk that he had Taunt, but I didn't think that he was actually running it. Most Crobats decide to go for more of a stally build, usually Roost, Toxic, Brave Burn, U-Turn. So I ruled out that he would have Taunt, and that paid off. He switches into Arcanine to neutralize my attack, but Haxorus just has such a high base attack that an Outrage took it out with no problem, and I was able to see he was not running any defense investment on that Arcanine. It was more offensive, and like I said, that Crobat was gonna speed my Crobat regardless, because as you guys just saw, I still had a 1 stage on speed and it outspit my Haxorus. So GG, great battle. You guys can expect more of these battles, and thank you for the great battle, King Articus.